Hello friends, this is David Sami with A Christian Journey. Today we want to learn 5 lessons from the Pharisees in order to avoid their mistakes. Now, you may be able to go through the gospel and find more areas that we could glean insight from. But to me, these 5 represent a general areas that we as evangelicals could go off track. Now, if we are looking for a counterpart to Pharisees in our day, we could say in a broad sense, the conservative evangelicals could represent today Pharisee. The people who take their Bible seriously and want to live in conformity to God's ways and God's command. But who were the Pharisees? You see, the Pharisees were a dominant party within Judaism. Pharisaism was an ideology that was embraced by most of the lawyers and scribes. And as a group, the Pharisees, they considered themselves the guardians and the interpreter of the law. Now, they strongly committed themselves to daily application and observance of the law, and they believe in the existence of spirits, angels, resurrection, and the coming Messiah. So, in a sense, we can look at them as a group, as the religious conservatives of their day. Now, these 5 areas, I categorize them. I hope you can see these here. But the first one is found in Mark chapter 7, verse 2 and 3, the tradition of the elders. Now, some of the disciples were eating without washing their hands. And the Pharisees, they came to Jesus and they said, "Why do your disciples not walk according to the tradition of the elders?" Now, these tradition of the elders were basically oral laws, oral instruction that were handed down and passed on from one teacher to another. But over time, they became almost equal to the scriptures themselves. Now, you see, we can fall into the same trap. We could develop some artificial standards and ideals that are not in the Bible. But with the best of intention, we could develop these artificial standards, and over time, they could become equal or even surpass the scripture. We could judge people on the basis of these artificial standards that we saw fit to put in. You see, friend, I don't think anyone has the right to make something sin where God has left people free. But you see, we may look at our society and think, okay, there are many things that are wrong, but we are putting these artificial standards as protective measure so we may know how to live. But you see, now we are adding something to the Bible where the Bible has remained silent. Have you ever gone to a church that maybe they had unspoken dress codes, that you had to dress a certain way? And if you didn't conform exactly to their code, you almost get shunned. People will look at you differently. And almost like you either fit in with us and the way we are, or maybe this is not the right place for you. Or maybe a smoking. Now, obviously, I don't promote smoking. But you see, we can develop an ideal that smoking is sin and come across a person, and just because they smoke, we will consider them a sinner. We have to be very careful not to add artificial standards that are not found in the Bible. If we see something that is wrong, we should just come out and say, well, you know, I think it'd be wise not to smoke cigarette. It'd be wise to dress modestly. But you see, we cannot hold people accountable to the tradition that we have made, and we judge them based on those traditions where it's not in the scripture. So we want to be aware of the tradition that we create. The second one is found in Matthew chapter 12, verse 1 and 2, theological differences. Now, here the disciples were hungry and they plucked heads of grain to eat. And the Pharisees, they saw it and they said to Jesus, "Your disciples are doing what is not lawful on the Sabbath." And Jesus then gives them a reply. But you see, here, we could fall into the same trap today. We could think that our theological position is absolute and correct, and there is no other way of looking at these subjects except the way we believe it should be. Now, I have studied the Bible for over 30 years, and what I'm amazed is not that how much I know, but how much I don't know. And over the years, I have changed my position. As long as we remain under the umbrella of Christianity, I change my views in regard to the end times, in regard to predestination, in regard to some of the doctrines that after examining them, I found that maybe the position I held was not really biblical, but it was a very kind of something that most of the people that I knew embraced, but it was not really biblical. It was a popular position. But have you ever talked to people and just because you may have a difference of opinion, they will tell you, well, this is what the Bible says and I believe the Bible. But it never occurs to them that maybe, just maybe, you have read the same passages and you have arrived at a different conclusion. But they should maybe ask you, what made you arrive at that conclusion? What makes you think that this position is correct? And hear you out, rather than immediately think that you are wrong and there is no way that they will change their opinion or even giving you a hearing. But you see, if we behave that way, we always see the same assumptions over and over and over again. We never progress. We never learn anything new because we always assume that our position is the correct position and there's just no other way of looking at that passage. But maybe the other person has looked at it from certain advantage point that we haven't considered. That maybe they saw something that we neglect to see. So we want to be careful about theological differences to think that our position is always the correct one and never give a hearing. Never give a hearing to something that's different. Again, I emphasize under the umbrella of Christianity. We do not want to go outside of the umbrella of Christianity, but within the umbrella, there are differences of opinion. But who is right? And how can we evaluate things? And it'd be okay if our position was not right. So let's be mindful of that. The third one is found in Matthew 23:23, majoring in minors. Jesus said, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, for you tie mint and dill and cumin and have neglected the weightier matters of the law, justice, mercy, and faithfulness." You know, this is one area that we can all fall into. We may think that there are certain areas of interest or certain areas that we find exciting or certain areas that we think the church has gone wrong in these areas. And we hold on to those things as complete essential, that the work of Christ would become void if we don't embrace this minor little point. You see, we do not want to major in minor and neglect the bigger things of God: compassion, love, kindness, things that would make us to become transformed to the likeness of God, rather than maintaining one little position that we feel like this is utmost important. If I may say, you know, we should be careful not to listen to extreme people, because a lot of times extreme people, they have one area that they feel like this is the most important area, and if they have a strong personality, they could project that area into us and cause us to think, yes, this is the most important thing. And it usually corrupts us. It usually makes us almost like people who are always angry just because of this one area. But maybe that one area is a minor one, but it has become a major one in our head. So we want to be careful not to major in minors. The fourth one is found in Mark chapter 2, verse 27, where Jesus says, there was a discussion about the Sabbath day. I believe it's the same one that is found in Matthew 12, verse 1 and 2, where Mark adds this phrase, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for Sabbath. This phrase is a very interesting statement, that God did not have all of these commands and create a being to fit the commands, but rather he gave these commands to his people that it may go well with them. You see, none of us can become justified in the eyes of God by observing the law, by trying to live in such a way that we would command every single law. None of us can do it. That's why Jesus had to come, and Jesus accomplished that. But you see, if we think people are made for law, we become very cruel, because we think it is the Sabbath that matters. And everybody that is not able to do it or keep it the way we think it should be, we are ready to discard them. See, this is one reason that can make religious people to become very cruel. Now, I hate to say this because I am a religious person, but some of the most cruelest people that I have seen have been religious people, because they think people are made for the command, not the command is made for people, for their well-being, that it might go well with them, that the people of God may know how to live in order to become the right kind of person. And another thing is, sometimes we judge two people, and in our judgment we may think this person has gone further than this one. But you see, we don't know where they started from. Maybe the person that seemed to us that has gone further did not have a lot of baggage. Maybe this person grew up in a good family. Maybe they were grown up in a Christian household, so they were achieved a certain level. But this other person maybe has started way at the bottom. Maybe they didn't grow up in a godly home. Maybe they got themselves into a lot of habitual sin, a lot of struggles. But for them to come up here, they actually made more grounds than this one. But you see, we look at them and we make a wrong judgment just because we don't see all the facts. But you see, Sabbath was made for man, not man for Sabbath. We need to be patient with other people. If you are in any capacity of leadership, after a while you realize how fallen people are. But you see, you become a cruel taskmaster, a cruel pastor or teacher, if you think that people are made for the rules and commands rather than the commands made for the people. Not that God's command should be regarded lightly, but that it's a process. And we want to always be embracing, encouraging, and loving as we go. Because sometimes we may not be able to do certain things, but we need to be patient and understand that Sabbath was made for man, not the other way around. Now, the fifth one is found in Matthew chapter 9, verse 11. Why does your teacher eat with tax collector and sinners? Now, we see that, that when Jesus called Matthew threw a party, invited Jesus, and many of Matthew's friends who were tax collectors and sinners, they all came there, and they were all basically having a feast. But you see, to the perception of the Pharisees, the religious people, Jesus was contaminating himself by hanging around tax collectors and sinners. Now, here is something that we need to be careful, because we could go too far on the other side and to think that there is something virtuous to hang around with people that are sinners. No, but we need to ask ourselves this question: are we approachable? Are we kind to people who do not live, obviously, according to Christian ways, because they're not Christian? You see, if you go back in time and we could see Jesus and we could see a Pharisee, who do we think that was more godly? Maybe the Pharisee would appear more. But what would our impression be of Jesus? To me, maybe Jesus would be a person who makes us at ease, who does not overpower us with his Bible knowledge or how righteous he is, but he's kind, he's compassionate, and he's approachable. But you see, we could become so judgmental and so hard toward other people. As a matter of fact, I remember talking to one young lady that she was going to high school, and in the high school that she was attending, in the beginning she tried to kind of hang around most of the Christian kids that were attending that public school. But unfortunately, she told me that, all they do is sit around a table and make fun of other people. Make fun of the way the people dress, make fun of other people who don't look right, and they just basically put other people down. You see, we could become like those Pharisees, that we think that we don't want to get contaminated, we don't want to get touched by anyone who may be a little different. But as a rule of thumb, if you're hanging around with someone that is not godly, and if we see them influencing us more than we influencing them, we should take notice there. And there is no glory in going out of our way to, in a sense, want to hang around with sinners. But if the Lord brings someone into our path, we want to be kind. We want to know that they just don't know. And it will not make us any better by making fun of people, putting them down, and lifting ourselves up in a very proud and arrogant way, rather than being like that publican, where he went before God and said, God, have mercy on me, a sinner. So these are these 5 areas that, at least to me, was relevant to where we are and where we could go off track. Now, you may think more areas that can be brought up, and I'm sure there is, but my hope is that we examine ourselves maybe in light of these 5 areas. Is there an area that maybe we should reconsider how we are living, or maybe the direction that we are going? So my hope is that we don't fall into these 5 areas that makes us to repeat the mistakes that the Pharisees made. Well, may the Lord be with you. May He keep you. May He make His face shine upon you. Let me know your thoughts about these 5 areas. And until we meet again, this is David Sami with The Christian Journey.